soothing remarks of Andrew Yang.
Deep Thoughts by Andrew Yang. It's been a really awesome time on the campaign trail, and we'd love for you to know a little bit more about Andrew. So Andrew, would you share with us one of your favorite stories from the campaign?
I probably shared this in another context, but meeting Juanito, who has a tattoo on my face. Because first you see the tattoo online, and you're like, the first thing you think is like, is that real? Or is that like, some temporary action? Then you realize it's not temporary. And then you think, that's a very high commitment move. And so then I said, I better fucking win this thing.
What's your favorite part about being in Nevada?
Right now, the weather here is much, much better than it is on the East Coast. I left New York and it was capital C cold. Like, it's not like, oh, fall chilly. I was like, it's freaking cold. I looked up and I was like, freaking Nevada, like a great time. But bigger picture, the Yang Gang has welcomed us with open arms here in Nevada from day one, and that's the best part about being here. Also today, I got to have lunch with 8 recipients of the Freedom Dividend. And I was looking forward to that very, very much. They're actually here seated in the front. Go ahead and stand, if you will, and just let people know. So of them, I'm going to give a couple shout outs. It is Joe's birthday tomorrow. And for Joe and Angel and for 2 others, it is their first time in Las Vegas. I've been looking forward to meeting them in person for a while, so when I saw this trip and I knew they were coming, then that was something that was a highlight.
It's fantastic. Well, weather here is perfect right now. And I'd like to know, how did your family feel, especially Evelyn, when you first told them you would be running for president?
Well, you've probably seen the interviews with Evelyn, where she was skeptical that it was really happening for a while, which I guess is a pretty normal reaction. If your husband's like, hey, baby, I'm thinking about running for president, what do you think? And then she's like, pass the salt. Because the conversation built over months, and I think the seriousness ratcheted up when I was like, hey, I'm going to quit my job and start preparing for the run. But Evelyn's been a superstar the whole time. She's the superhero in our family, the Rock. And I have to say how excited I am to have her with me on the trail now. It's like been a game changer. So I told a joke that I'll share with you all because it's pretty funny. Where Evelyn was like, Andrew, I'm not campaigning with you if you're at some like 1 or 2% shit. And I was kidding, because that's not something Evelyn would say. She doesn't talk like that. Between the two of us, I talk like that. So she's been awesome on the trail, and she tells me that her favorite part about being on the trail is meeting you all. And she's met, I know, many of the people here in this room at a point, because some of you were at Yangapalooza, and some of you were in LA where she was, and some of these things. And she came away and she was just like, I can't believe how much people actually are like excited to see me. Like, in her case, where she was like, why would they be excited to see me? And I was like, maybe, like they've been excited to see you for a while. And so thank you for welcoming her to the trail. And having her on the trail has amplified the energy for me in the campaign many times over. She's joining me in Atlanta for the debate. You too.
It's always awesome to have a partner with you who helps you maintain that energy. And you always seem so positive and happy. How do you manage that?
I mean, most of it is just a genuine reaction to the love and warmth and support that I get and the campaign gets just about everywhere we go. And I've been running now for almost 2 years, and it's so much easier to be energized and invigorated now because look around this room. We have like hundreds of people who believe in this campaign, who come in from all over the country. Now, keeping my energy high is the easiest thing in the world because I see you all, I see folks who invested themselves and their hopes for the future in this campaign. You can't help but be energized. I have to say that the harder part was the beginning, when I'd show up to things and there were not hundreds of people. There were like a few curious onlookers. So keeping my energy high now is actually much, much easier than it was in the beginning.
So amazing that the Yang Gang has grown, and we're just so happy to see it. And look at this full room as an example. Let's learn a little bit about your background. What at the education company helped you to prepare to become president?
The education company I ran taught me a lot about trying to put people in positions where they could do work they enjoy. So the industry I was in had a turnover rate of 100% a year. In other words, most of the people who did it for 1 year and then peaced out. Like, it's very much of a transitory type of industry. And it's not alone in that. Like if you look at a lot of our industries, they actually have turnover rates approaching that. A lot of the food service businesses, home healthcare aides have turnover rates approaching that. And this particular slice of the education industry also had a really high turnover rate. So when I first got into it, I thought, okay, if we treat people well and we paid them more, could we get that turnover rate down to something that I thought would be reasonable, like maybe like 20%, which would obviously be a lot lower than 100%. And so I thought that was like a very ambitious goal. And we got it down to 5%. Now we got it down to 5% because we did something, and I say this around the country too. I run businesses. There are 3 things you can do with your people. Number 1, you do nothing, and then they leave pretty soon, probably about a year. They'll just peace out. Number 2, you tell them how great they are. And that works for a little while, but then eventually they're like, talk is cheap, and then they leave. And that'll take about 2 years. Or you pay them more, and then they will stay with you forever, it turns out. So the way we got turnover down to 5% is we just paid a lot more. No, and we treated them well too. Like we had national gatherings of the teachers, which just were like a pure cost. I was just like, look, if you're teaching for this company, you should have a trip to meet other teachers and the team and spend some time together and feel like you're developing in some professional way. So that was like just a pure cost item. I was like, I want to have, so I called it the convocation because I was like, it'd be like cooler sounding. We had like a cool name, and then people thought convocation was lame. I was like, tough luck, I'm the CEO, it's a convocation. So, it was a nerdy company, as you can tell. So we did things that were non-monetary, but the non-monetary stuff was a lot more powerful because we actually just put our money where our mouth is. If we put our money where our mouth is and skipped all the non-monetary stuff, that probably would have worked to a large extent too. If you put the 2 of them together though, they're very, very powerful. And so that's how we got it down to 5%. People want to be valued and they want to be compensated and recognized.
That's very true, and maybe I should apply for a job if he's paying more. So speaking of jobs...
I want to give out everyone in the country a raise, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Creating those. Tell us about Venture for America and what you learned from your nonprofit that created jobs in struggling cities that has helped you prepare to be president.
I learned so much from Venture for America, and some of it very, very encouraging and some of it, frankly, shocking and horrifying to a point where I decided to run for president. So, first, the good, where I'm a firm believer in entrepreneurship, and I've seen successful businesses take shape that have now transformed hundreds of lives and created tons of value and made people stronger and healthier in communities around the country. Also saw how hard that was, how frankly out of reach it is for the vast majority of Americans. And it made me somewhat dubious about this entrepreneurship mythos that I still love and embody, because I still love entrepreneurship. But then there's a lot of me that thinks we're bullshitting people. Or, you know, we're like, there's reading this article about like, oh, how did you build your $100 million company? And it's like, oh, I followed these 9 steps. I guarantee you they followed none of those steps in real time. What happened was they built the company, some journalist said, hey, we need an article about you, and then they made some shit up. I'll tell you, I'm like, that is what's happening. Like, retroactively, you're like, oh, how did I do this? So that was like the tough reality that I saw in a lot of the country, and the fact that our economy now has reached these historic winner-take-all extremes that we're going to end up grinding up more and more people. And the fact that I was the celebrated social entrepreneur who, objectively, if you start a nonprofit and it raises millions of dollars and you get recognized by the White House and stuff, then you're like a success in that realm. But I looked up and said, the work I'm doing is just scratching the surface of the actual problems. And that was true not just for me, that was true for just about every nonprofit leader that I knew. Because what happens, and in some ways, like, this is not, I mean, it's just what happens. So what happens is, like, if you're a nonprofit leader, you go around and try to raise money for your organization, and then periodically some organization that likes to support nonprofits gets you together with the other nonprofit leaders, and then you talk about your work, and in a way it's very celebratory, but in a way it's like you're just doing a song and dance for money. Various people. And so then you're with the nonprofit leaders, and then when you talk turkey, everyone is like, yeah, we're just scratching the surface of the problem. Like, none of us are actually solving the problems. But we're getting recognized because people like the amount of work that we're doing that is just skimming the surface. And so I actually felt like a little bit of a phony down the stretch, which was a very, very bad feeling. Because people were coming to me and celebrating Venture for America, and there was definitely a reason to celebrate it, it's awesome. But then if you're honest, you're like, hey, this is not going to fix the problems, it's not going to counteract the 4th Industrial Revolution, it's not going to make it so that millions of Americans can actually do the kind of work that they want to do, it's not going to counteract the student loan crisis, it's not going to help combat climate change, it's not going to do these massive, it's not going to do anything to address these massive challenges. And when you're in that role, the unfortunate part is that you're stuck in a role where you're just lauding the work that you're doing, and you're thanking the people that are supporting you, because you're very grateful. So those nonprofit leaders, when you get us all together in a room, there was like a little bit of a venting session, where we're all like, what is happening? Like, we're not actually solving the problems. And then you put us out on stage, and then we become happy and grateful again. That's some insight. You know, when someone says they're starting a nonprofit, like, I want to support them because I know how hard that work is. That running a nonprofit means you have to be indefatigable and constantly positive and just, you know, making it happen. And even if it works, you're not going to get paid a lot of money. Like, if you started a nonprofit that grows to a certain scale. So people who do that work, whenever I meet them, I want to give them a hug, tell them how awesome they are. But the biggest thing is I want to rewrite the rules of our economy so that they can actually do the work. So $1,000 a month in the hands of every American would channel tens of millions of dollars into nonprofits in every part of the community. And one of the policies on the website that even you guys who are hardcore Yang Gang probably missed, because it's like policy number 83 out of 160 or whatnot, is prosperity grants of $100 a year that you can only give to a nonprofit for every American. So this would channel billions of dollars into nonprofits, but it does something even more powerful makes all of us each of us a philanthropist. So you actually have to think, okay, what are the causes that I value? And number two, it makes every nonprofit responsive to people and stakeholders instead of the check writers. Because the tough truth about running a nonprofit is like they're the people you're serving who are almost never actually cutting you checks. And then they're the people who are cutting you checks who tend to be kind of far away from the action. And so you wind up getting pulled towards the money and away from the people. This is another way of reunifying the money and the people that it would reform the way nonprofits operate.
Yes, and speaking of policies, you have over, as you mentioned, 150 policies on your website, ranging from criminal justice to the environment to getting rid of the penny.
Yeah.
What?
We hate the penny here in the end. The penny is terrible. That's the root of our problems. No, it's not.
What is tying those together? Those ideas.
Or not having the daylight savings time switch every year. What ties those problems together is just that there's a relatively straightforward way that we can improve our lives or make our country operate more efficiently. That maybe the penny's not like the top on your list of concerns, but then when you think about it, you're like, why are we dealing with that? Or banning robocalling. It's like, why are we allowing ourselves to be subject to robocalls from corporations that, when's the last time you got a robocall you were excited about? You were like, oh, I'm really glad this one came through. This one's telling me something really interesting about my IRS tax return. At least that's what my robocalls seem to be about. Not that I picked them up, obviously, I'm not an idiot, but when I pick them up, they seem to have a lot to do with the IRS. So they're just ways that we can improve our lives that most Americans just look up and be like, yeah, that's common sense. I think that's like the common thread to the policies. Certainly some of the problems are much, much bigger than others. But hey, if you can do something, like one thing, I don't know if it's coming up a little later, but we should legalize online poker. Now, is that like a top 20 problem for most people? No. Or what it is. I mean, we're in Las Vegas, it is. Oh, good. Well, it's top 20 problem for some people. But does it make sense to have online poker be legal in 4 states and then not the others, and then all the people that we know are gambling anyway have to go to these offshore sites that are shady and don't have various consumer protections, and the revenue's flowing offshore? Like, that does not make any sense. So there are ways that we can fix things, both big and small.
Recently you released, right, well, top 10 for me. Recently you released a pretty significant technology policy that draws a real contrast between you and Elizabeth Warren, and that is your position about breaking up the big tech companies. Why do you think that's not the approach to take, and what should we be doing instead?
To be clear, I'm not against having tech companies divest certain parts of themselves in some of these situations. Like, they have gotten too big, they have stifled innovation, they do just gobble up competitors instead of having the competitors grow. So I'm not anti-breakup tech. I just think leading with breakup tech actually misses some of the bigger problems. Number one, it pretends that if we had 4 mini Amazons competing against each other, then that would somehow do the trick. Having 4 mini Amazons competing against each other would not resuscitate Main Street businesses and malls that are closing. And a lot of these tech marketplaces gravitate towards 1 or 2 winners. And one of the things I say is, like, who here wants to use the 4th best navigation app? That's like cruel and unusual punishment. It's like Apple Maps. You want to like throw the thing out. I think they're 4. They're freaking terrible. In some cases, a massive drop between 1 and 4. And so the joke I told on the debate stage was like, no one's using Bing today. And then like the #1 Google search was, what is Bing? So saying that we're gonna like break them up and have them compete against each other, it's like, it doesn't actually solve some of the problems. And one of the big problems is that our kids are getting hooked on these screens and getting depressed as a result. And if you had 4 mini Facebooks, you would actually be increasing the incentives for them to try and ratchet up the engagement for our kids. You know, it's like, what you have to do is you have to get into the guts of it and saying, hey, maybe we need to recalibrate the 20 design decisions you made on this social media app instead of maximizing user engagement, which obviously maximizes your profits. We need to maximize our kids' health, and that was going to mean a different set of decisions. So saying break up tech, it's a 20th century solution to 21st century problems. We need to be more nuanced and surgical because each of these tech companies is its own set of problems and issues.
Speaking a little bit more about your platform, what plank in your platform do you feel is most important but is not really getting a lot of attention?
I think the most profound thing we could do in our country is to measure our economic progress differently by how we are doing. Is right now we're getting bludgeoned every day. We're getting bludgeoned every day with stock market prices and GDP and headline unemployment rate, none of which actually makes any sense or has any relationship to how we're doing. So if you can imagine a quarterly report on our mental health and our freedom from substance abuse and how our kids are doing and clean air and clean water, that transition alone would be monumental for the way we think about ourselves and our society. And that's a really easy change. You know, that's just like, hey, GDP is 100 years old, kind of stupid. So we're going to change it to the scorecard. And then you could say even to the CNBCs of the world, it's like, look, I get it. You're catering to the investor class. You have, you know, like people who care about their stock portfolios. But we're going to strongly suggest that in addition to those things, you actually also talk about these other things. You know, it's like some race at a time, you talk about the stocks, you'd be like, and here's how, like, our infant mortality is doing. Things like that. Like, if you actually change the measurements, then you would actually change our mindset and get us focused on solving the real problems that would make our families and communities stronger.
I'd like to touch a little bit about some recent news. The tragic shootings in Santa Clarita are a really worrying pattern in America. And I'd like to know what you would do as president to help curb gun violence, particularly in schools. That's become such a terrible problem.
I have a 4-year-old son whose school just had an active shooter drill for the first time. And the active shooter drills cause stress and anxiety and confusion among kids and families, and there's no evidence they're actually saving lives and making it safer. So I would make the shooter drills optional. Now, I dug into this is a terrible time in our country where there's a school shooting, and then we have to ask, and each of you does this, I know, where you say, like, how much am I going to dig into this particular shooter's background and fact pattern? You know what I mean? Like you did, like how much am I going to find out? On this one, I wanted to know everything, in part because, you know, now school shooting, I mean, I will say that, like, generally speaking, my pattern during one of these shooters is to try and find out everything. But there have been times where I've almost not wanted to dig too deep because you're like, oh, like this is, it's like peering into darkness, you know, and tragedy. So in this case, it was a boy who was turning 16. He had a 6-shooter, and he shot 5 of his classmates in essentially homeroom in the quad, and then shot himself in the head. And so the reason why I was digging into this pattern was, like, okay, what could you actually do that would change that particular outcome? So there was no criminal background. There was not, like, it wasn't like an active shooter drill would have made a difference because there was no, like, alarm, and he was just, like, in the place. It's possible that, like, a metal detector might have done something. But when you look at this particular fact pattern and you realize that you have to dig much, much deeper to what is going on in our families, our homes, our schools, our communities. This particular child had an abusive dad who died 2 years earlier, and he discovered his father's body. And so there was, I'm sure, like fundamental damage that resulted from some of those things. What's happening with politicians right now is we focus on the guns, which is in many ways the right place to focus, because if you have other countries who don't have rampant access to firearms, then dysfunction does not result in shootings and mass tragedies. So we need to do everything we can to decrease the supply of guns and make it harder for teenagers in particular to access firearms that can kill lots of Americans. And most Americans agree with that, and we have to break the stranglehold of the NRA and then pass gun laws that won't be able to do. But this particular shooting does lead you to think, like, even if you pass the gun laws that most of us have in mind, this particular shooting would not have been impacted because this was not someone who had a background, this was not someone who was accessing an assault weapon, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to try and go into the roots of families, homes, schools, communities, and face facts that 96% plus of the shooters we're talking about are boys and men, young boys and young men, in most cases. And we have this fundamental problem right now turning boys into healthy, strong young men. And as a parent of 2 young boys, one of whom has special needs, I can see very clearly that you have the wrong boy in the wrong school, and terrible things can happen. Now, most of the time, those terrible things are to the boy himself and the family, but sometimes those things end up getting externalized in tragic and traumatic ways. So the challenge is to try and equip our schools with the expertise and resources to be able to not be assembly lines for our kids, and that if a kid shows up and has a different neurological profile or learning profile or social and emotional needs, that they don't get left behind. So that is a massive challenge, but that's the challenge we should be undertaking. Guns are a big part of the problem, but to me, the bigger part of the problem is the fact that we have many, many boys and young men who are falling through the cracks.
I have 2 sons also, so this is obviously concerning as a parent. Thank you for that. Speaking about education, your education plan focuses heavily on vocational and technical training, and Nevada, fortunately, is a big believer in that as well. What do you think we can do to encourage more people to choose that career path?
No, I think a lot more young people would choose it if it was available to them. Right now, only 6% of American high school students are in technical, vocational, apprenticeship tracks. And in Germany, that's 59%, so think of that gulf. And I have seen those technical tracks in high schools, and they often have some shop associated with them or some nearby facility where the kids go and like learn how to take things apart and put them back together. And it's just a lot harder to teach our kids how to do that than to throw them in a classroom with some textbooks and pretend they're going to go to college. You know what I mean? It's like an investment we have to make in these tracks and programs, and then if you expose the kids to them, then I'm sure many of them would choose them. We do have to go through a national effort to highlight how these jobs are awesome and resilient and gratifying and stable and pay well. So as president, I'm going to team up with Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs, and then have this campaign where like, hey, these are actually real good jobs. Like have someone walk in like has a steady paycheck and is like doing some work, and then just for fun we'll have some like unemployed blogger being like, I got 50 likes. That was a little rough because frankly my life revolves around how many likes I get, so I really can't be too mad. But no, there are many, many jobs that involve actually moving things around in the real world that will be here for a long time to come, longer than a lot of the basic cognitive jobs that we're in the process of automating away with AI and the rest of it.
Yes. Speaking of Nevada, I've heard you mention that Nevada has been in the forefront of automation discussion. Why is that?
Well, Nevada may or may not be at the forefront of the automation discussion because, for whatever reason, it's not like leading the headlines in the way I believe it should. But if you dig, you find that Nevada is #1 in the entire country in terms of the proportion of jobs subject to displacement by technology in the months to come. How many of you knew that? Yeah, from me. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, Nevada's #1, and it's because of the nature of the industries that are the backbone of this economy, which are retail, hospitality, gaming, call centers, transportation. And if you look at those industries, you realize that you can automate away a lot of those jobs. MGM recently fired hundreds of bartenders and replaced them with robot bartenders. And it turns out the tourists like the robot bartenders. Unfortunately, I mean, it's just reality. The robot bartenders cost about $250,000 each. So if you do the math, MGM was like, I can get my money back in like 4 to 6 years. And so that's what they did. Do you think they're gonna be the last chain to do it? No. So Nevada is ground zero for the automation of jobs. Most Nevadans have some dim sense of this, but haven't actually confronted it fully. And that's one of the things hopefully our campaign can do in the days to come is to actually bring this to the top. Because to me, if you lose your jobs in a community, I mean, like that's the most important thing going on, like in your day-to-day. And when Nevadans wake up to the fact that this is ground zero, I think that our campaign is going to grow very, very quickly here. But yeah, you can ask your friend, you just like Google it, say Nevada #1 automation, and they might now find something to do with me now, but like when you find studies that are not done by me, it's like those other economists who've looked at it say Nevada's #1.
Yeah, that's true, and thank you for addressing that, in particular as it relates to the gaming industry. And thank you for your support of legalizing online poker. I think a lot of people in this room, certainly in Nevada, appreciate that. And so, we're here in Nevada. Tell us what the Yang Gang can do to help. Let's activate.
Yes. Thank you, Yang Gang Nevada. So this state is crucial for us. It's the 3rd state to vote, and it's going to be a free-for-all by the time it gets to you all. Now, this is a caucus state, and caucus states reward passionate organization. So if you think to yourself, hey, like there's not much I can do to influence whether Andrew Yang wins in Nevada, you are dead wrong. Everyone here in this room can profoundly influence whether we win in Nevada. Every Nevadan who decides to head to the caucus is worth his or her weight in gold. And so that applies to you all who are here in the state, but also anyone you talk to, your friends, neighbors, relatives, worst enemies. You'd be like, hey, I know you hate me and I hate you, but how about Andrew Yang? I'm just kidding, that'd be a little weird. Most of us don't even have a worst enemy, right? It's like, can you even think of who your worst enemy is? I mean, yeah, anyway, it's like, if you have a worst enemy, you probably messed up at some point. Or they messed up and you're filled with righteous anger. One of those two things. So if you reach out to folks here in Nevada and get them excited about the campaign, we can win in this state. I'm 100% sure of it. And we need your help to do it. One thing I'll say, and I know there's some folks watching, from afar, but it's true in Nevada, it's true across the country. This election is so up in the air. It's like historically up in the air. Oh, yeah. What I mean by that is that if you look at the field at different stages in different cycles, this is the most up in the air of any cycle that people can remember in generations. In a way, if you have 4 front runners, you know what that means? You don't have any front runners. No, really. It's a little bit like, yeah, and if you dig into the underlying numbers, so a lot of you are really excited about this campaign, so you do look at like the occasional polls. And if you look at the occasional poll, you'd say, like, okay, Yang has some support. It's like around the 3 to 5% level. Like, is it growing? Is it holding steady? Like, you know, where's it going in different places? That's the way most of us would interact with it. But if you go a little deeper into the polls, then you find out a number of things. Number one, the support for every other candidate, including the current frontrunners, is very, very soft. You ask a majority of the people that say, like, they check Joe Biden or whoever it is, and then they say, hey, could you change your mind? They're like, oh yeah, I can change my mind. You know, like the conviction level for any of the candidates is historically low. It's, the candidate with the highest conviction supporters is sitting right here on stage. So what you're seeing is a historically fluid field. We're coming up with the highest conviction support of anyone in the race. We're one of only 6 campaigns that actually has money to spend. Thanks to you all, so thank you for that. And I tell jokes about this. It's like, we didn't spend the money because I'm Asian. And I like to hold on to the money. But we just started spending it like a week and a half ago. And the lag time between when you start spending money and when you start seeing results is 3 to 6 weeks. Just so you know. So if you think it's like, oh, if you like start spending on Thursday, you start seeing results on Friday, it's like, no, there's like a 3 to 6 week lag time. So we are very, very well positioned in this race to grow. We have very sophisticated people who've done through the underlying numbers, and they are pumped. They're looking at this and saying like, wow, like this is exactly where we want to be. And I've said this whole time that we're going to grow and grow and grow and peak at the exact right time, and we are right on schedule. Now, does this mean that we have to work like mad and work super hard? Yes, it does. And that's what we need you all to do here in Nevada. If you haven't already done so, we have organizers here around the room that have clipboards that if you just put your name and contact information, we'd love to have your help reaching out to your fellow Nevadans in the days to come. You know, we like operate in little groups, you have fun together, you go out and talk to people, and when you talk to someone and they're actually excited about the campaign or excited to learn, it's the greatest feeling in the world. How many of you had that feeling? So if you haven't had that feeling and you want that feeling, sign up with one of the organizers on the perimeter. They have clipboards, and then you'll get to hang out with other awesome people, reach out to Nevadans, and help us make history together in 2020. Yeah, so we have so many fun things coming down the pike for you all. I have to say, the hardest part about my job is not spilling the beans every time I see the Angus. But we've been planting some seeds and putting some irons in the fire that when the seeds bloom and the irons come out of the oven, you'll be really, really excited. We would not be here without you. We would not be here without you, and with your help, we are going to make history and shock the world in 2020. We are
money in our hands. Put the money in our hands. Can we afford it? Yes. Will it cause inflation? No. Is it awesome? Yes. Is anyone trying to make it happen? Yeah, that guy.